I am very happy to be able to introduce our next speakers. Julie Wallis, the main speaker, has had her own language school in Italy for over 30 years. Following the COVID lockdown, she made a brave decision to move her entire school and ensure that the last 10 years of her professional career were used to shout about values. This means working from within and creating a safe environment where respect and caring for well-being is at the heart of what we do. It means raising taboo topics in all the classrooms and raising awareness in our own school and partner state schools. And it means making your values visible to the world through actions. All sounds really great to me. And she'll be presenting together with Helen Allen, who is an MA student at her school and who helped project manage the Say No to Hate. Okay, so the topic is Say No to Hate, Say Yes to Debate. If everyone would like to put their questions in the chat, then as soon as they're finished, we should have 5 or 10 minutes for questions at the end. And I'd like to hand over to Julie. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Helen's going to bring up the slides, we hope. So what we'd like to talk to you about today is storytelling. And we'll start immediately with a story that happened a long time ago, 55 years ago to be exact. Once upon a time, a little girl, Julie, went to live in South Africa. Well, 55 years ago meant that I grew up in an apartheid regime. And I grew up with an incredible sense of shame at being party to that. I already understood that there was a great sense of injustice. Later, 6 years later, I moved back to the UK, to England, and I arrived in England, in the southeast of England. My parents wanted me to go to a grammar school, and I had to do an 11+ exam, which I didn't pass. Why or how I got into the grammar school is beyond me. But the first problem I encountered there was bullying, because I had a very strong South African accent. And the bullying, unfortunately, didn't come from the other students, not straight away. It came from the teacher, the English teacher. And he called me Zulu, made me feel very different. And I felt embarrassed and I didn't feel at ease. Of course, the students picked up on it straight away, but I was lucky. I was really lucky to have a wonderful father. He told me not to worry about being different, and that he told me it was okay to be different. And actually, the more different you were, the more special you were. So I felt supported. And later on, I made the move to Italy, 36 years ago, actually. And I found that very different too, and very difficult as a woman, difficult to fit in. I eventually met and married my husband. And then I had 2 wonderful children. One is James. He is dyspraxic. And I had a real problem fighting and battling through school. My younger son, Thomas, you can see both of them in the picture, is gay. Actually, I've never had to stand up for him. He's pretty good at doing that for himself. But it's been quite a difficult ride, and I've been fighting all the way alongside them. I should warn you that both Helen and I have found it quite an emotional journey doing this presentation. But this story actually begins here. It's another story, and it's the story about Giovanni. Giovanni was a student in a technical school, a vocational school, where 97% of the children are male and 97% of the teachers are male. And we live in the northeast of Italy, a very right wing, very male orientated, white male orientated area. The story, I never met Giovanni, I never had the chance. The story came to me through his teacher, one of his few female teachers, Daniela. Daniela told me that one day Giovanni had asked to meet her and talk to her, and he told her that he thought he was gay. She listened, told him not to worry, and told him that she would be there for him. But the next day, Giovanni's father arrived at school demanding to see all the teachers. And he told them that he knew that his son had spoken to one of the teachers, and that whatever he said, it wasn't true, that his son was ill, mentally ill, and he needed looking after. Well, Giovanni committed suicide. When I heard the story, I knew we had to do something. It wasn't just enough to say, well, we believe in inclusion. We had to do something. And I decided to create a special project. Luckily, we were also sponsored by Equals. And the project actually had one overarching aim: to allow people to discuss and debate all kinds of issues relating to aspects of inclusion through storytelling. 10 projects with sensory walks for young learners to understand and help people with disabilities, to emigration and immigration with stories from people who lived here and moved elsewhere, and listening to stories of incoming people. And then the C word happened, and it's not what you think. The C word was COVID, and COVID influenced us, changed us. One big change was a decision to move our school so that we could work safely and still find ourselves in a better environment, an inclusive environment. And with COVID, the project seemed to be going out of the window because we couldn't meet students, we couldn't run workshops. But luckily, there were other opportunities. So I asked Helen to project manage the project, and Helen will tell you what happens.
Okay, thank you. So yes, as Julie mentioned, there were a few adaptations that we had to make in order to make this a storytelling project that we could do during this quite strange time. In a way, it was actually really lucky for us because it gave us the opportunity to work with global key speakers. So we were able to contact some of Julie's friends in the industry to ask them to run some of the sessions for us, which if we had done it in our local community, we might not have been able to get them to actually do the sessions. So we were really lucky with that. So I'm just going to show you some of those sessions and some examples of the work that the students produced. So here we have the first 3 sessions that were for younger age ranges, and so lower level. First of all, we had Claudia Ray, who she used comic strips as a way to tell stories, and she used books for younger children in order to introduce these more difficult topics. And then the students were invited to create their own comic strips, which was fantastic. Paola Tiela is actually one of our teachers. She's very gifted with music, is a choir master, and wanted to use music as a way to tell her story through different workshops. I'll have an example of that one as well, which is beautiful, really interesting. And finally, for the younger groups, we had Eleonora Arena, who's also one of our teachers, who actually studied drama and theatrics at university. So she was happy to choose a story that was about inclusion and have the students recreate that into a Zoom performance, a theatrical performance, which was fantastic as well. So these are some of the comics that the students produced from Claudia Ray's workshop. So her story, the original story, was Julian is a Mermaid, which is by Jessica Love. It's a really, if you don't know the story, you should check it out because it's really beautiful. The illustrations as well are stunning. And it's about a boy, Julian, who wants to be a mermaid, not a merman, a mermaid. And he has this beautiful costume that he creates. And there's I won't ruin it, but it's a very nice story. And that then created an atmosphere for our students to start discussing this idea of different people and inclusion and different mentalities and how open-minded they are to that or not. Luckily for us, our students with this were super open-minded, really lovely and compassionate, as you could tell by some of these comics. For example, this one by Filippo is different minds, different hearts, but they all need love. And then Desiree and Anna Maria had a story about someone who's a little bit different, who can't make friends. And they have this one person who supports them in introducing them into the group, and they all become friends together. We actually had another story, which unfortunately the student didn't send in, so I couldn't use it. There's about a young boy who wanted to wear makeup to school, and what happened with that as well. So we have we obviously had more comics, but these are just a couple I've shown today. The next slide is actually from the Paula Tieles session, which was Music is a Universal Language. It's a little video, and I think you'll know the song, so I'm just gonna go ahead and play it.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living life for today.
So, as you can imagine, that was quite difficult for Paula to pull off online. She did this completely online. The students, as you can see, they're using American Sign Language, I believe, to tell the story of Imagine. Fantastic job. They were quite nervous about being videoed actually, but they did such a good job. We were really proud of them. And in fact, we've used this video a couple of times, especially during an open day recently as well. So these are the last of the online sessions. So we had 3 more, which were, they were sort of a higher level, kind of older teenagers. So first of all, we had Media Literacy by Jamie Keddy, who used media as a platform to tell a story. And it was focusing on the types of news stories that students see and talking about fake news. And the students really, they're so aware of this, which is really impressive, that they're really aware of this idea that they're bombarded with this fake news and the opinions that helps them form, or the bias as well. So that was a really interesting discussion. Next was Sense of Place by Claudia Ferradas, who used photographs, a series of photographs to help tell stories at first. And then there's also some poetry. And this was all around the theme of immigration and refugees, which I think is a really important topic, particularly in Italy at the moment. It's almost daily that we have new news stories about this. So again, the students had a really mature discussion about this, which was, again, really lovely to be part of that. And then finally, we had the creative writing with Maria Heron, who actually did this as two slightly different workshops. One was for poetry and one was for specifically creative writing and stories. And we had a couple of students particularly who were really passionate about this. One girl actually sent in about 10 different poems after the session. So that was fantastic as well. Okay. This is actually a poem from the Claudia Ferrara's Sense of Place session that I would like to ask Julie if she'd be so kind as to read that for us.
They have no need of our help, so do not tell me these haggard faces could belong to you or me. Should life have dealt a different hand, we need to see them for who they really are, chancers and scroungers, layabouts and loungers with bombs up their sleeves, cutthroats and thieves. They are not welcome here. We should make them go back to where they came from. They cannot share our food, share our homes, share our countries. Instead, let us build a wall to keep them out. It is not okay to say, these are people just like us. A place should only belong to those who are born there. Do not be so stupid to think the world can be looked at another way.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to read this now in a slightly different way from the bottom up. So, the world can be looked at another way. Don't be so stupid to think that a place should only belong to those who are born there. These are people just like us. It is not okay to say, build a wall to keep them out. Instead, let us share our countries, share our homes, and share our food. They cannot go back to where they came from. We should make them welcome here. They are not cutthroats and thieves with bombs up their sleeves, layabouts and loungers, chancers and scroungers. We need to see them for who they really are. Should life have dealt a different hand, these haggard faces could belong to you or me. So do not tell me they have no need for our help. So this was a poem that was used in the, like I said before, the Sense of Place session with Claudia Ferradas, and it gives two very opposing opinions. So I think it's opened up a really interesting discussion with our students. And again, I'm so impressed because they were so mature and open-minded about the discussion as well. This is actually a poem from one of our lovely students who attended the session. This was Miriam, who I told you before sent in, I think, 10 different poems after the session had finished. So we displayed them around the school as well during the open day. And I'd just like to read this one to you now, which I thought was particularly sweet. So, recipe for the perfect friend. A big cup of trust. 10 kilos of respect, teaspoon of honesty, 10 grams of fun, and tons of love. Put trust in a bowl, so add respect and honesty. Beat them together, then add the 10 grams of fun. Leave it in the fridge for half an hour. Then mix them very nicely. Put in the oven at 180 degrees for 4 hours. Serve and enjoy. So we've had some examples from our students there, and we're very proud of their input. We also had some lovely feedback from our key speakers. For example, Jamie Keddy wanted to thank us to invite him to the event. Sorry. He said he really enjoyed it and he was glad to hear there was a success. Also, Maria Heron said that it went well, in her opinion, which it did. And she's very impressed with the young people and the work that they produced, as were we. We were really proud of them. And also Claudia Ferradas, who was very impressed by the students' contributions, and Megan, our DOS, who's a real pleasure to work with. And I hope we can repeat the experience in the future, which we hope we can as well. So finally, to sum up this project, we were able to combine it with an open day inauguration for our new school. So you can see here, there's some of our students and local staff with the mayor to cut the ribbon, and some of the teachers there putting the ribbon up beforehand. This is actually Julie on the right, with the mayor in the middle there and the local education councillor on the left. We did have some refreshments, which we had all very safely done with COVID regulations, as you can see. And we had our students come in and collect certificates for joining in, and also chatting about different options for the new school and what we could provide them. And here's some of our lovely staff who helped us out on the day and help us every day, in fact. So on the open day, we had the opportunity to give a couple more sessions for the adults. So the adults who potentially were working and therefore didn't get the opportunity to come along to some of the online sessions that had already been run. So we asked Nick Owen, who was very gracious to let us video him telling some stories, which Julia and I then used during our sessions. So I'd just like to show you one of the stories that Nick gave us for this session. Let me open here, okay. Oops. Sorry, okay.
Shafiq is a 10-year-old boy. Shafiq is a refugee from Somalia, and he's recuperating from an operation. He has a tumor on his brain. And the chemotherapy is working well, but his hair has all gone. He has no hair. So when he returns to school, he wears a woolen skiing hat on his head. Of course, the other students are curious. A boy wearing a hat in class. And so they tease him and they pull off his hat. When they see his bare head, they become embarrassed. And they hide their embarrassment by laughing at him. Shafiq is ashamed. He feels tears of anger at the edges of his eyes. And when he goes home after school, he says to his parents, please let me stay at home. The parents, try to give him strength, try to give him courage. They say, you have to be a good and brave boy. You have many things to learn at school. Soon your hair will grow again. It will become black and long as it used to be. Next morning, when the teacher arrives, the students are already there. They're looking at Shafiq. They're pointing, laughing. Shafiq tries to make himself as small as possible, wishing he was not there. The teacher says, good morning, class. And then the students notice that she too, the teacher, is also wearing a woolen skiing hat. The teacher removes her hat. Her hair is completely shaved, Her head is shining like the moon. And the teacher sits down next to Shafiq. She puts her arm around his shoulder. After school, the children go home. Many of them say to their parents, "I want my hair cut off." And next morning, half of the class has heads that are completely bald, completely shaved. And by the end of the week, only 2 students still have their hair. The teacher has made humanity and compassion into a game, a statement of fashion, an exercise in solidarity. And the students have joined the game. Together they've cut their hair, and as their hair begins to grow again, their sense of connectedness to themselves, to each other, to Shafiq, grows too. Their hair and their connectedness grow together.
Okay, so I'm going to pass back to Julie now.
So we haven't changed a lot in some ways over the course of the last 9 months, 10 months now. Our ethos that is at the foundation of all our activities is still the same. We still use basically the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European citizen, because it basically says you do not discriminate against anybody, no matter what. Next slide. But we have made some changes. We are a school that's quite, we're checked and inspected by Equals and Isley quite often, but we've made some changes. Our mission statement at the moment, we've decided to change that together, and we're working on that as a team because we want it to be clearer that inclusion is something that's very important to us all. You know, we've always been transparent. We offer CPD budgets to each member of staff, national contracts, very expansive handbooks are updated every year by all the staff. We do SWOT analysis together, 360-degree feedback and so on. But what's happened is we've continued with our weekly meetings and even online. Actually, we were the first school in Italy to close down, the first private school on the 23rd of February. But we've continued to work together and share resources and activities. And we've continued to communicate to the outside world. I felt it was very, very important that we understood that we're just part of a larger community. And in fact, right at the beginning, I said, I want to do something for the community. Anybody who wants to join me, it will have to be voluntary. And we all decided to work together to offer free lessons every day, 7 sessions a day. They were kind of more activities in English for what ended up being the whole of March, April and May. And we never took people's addresses or emails. We have continued to support the staff. The staff have needed a lot more support, but what has come in is that our DOS, Megan, has created personal portfolios for the DOSes. We've continued to do training. We've been so lucky. We're partnered with Nile and we've had a lot of support from them too. And I suppose I'm very lucky that I know a lot of people who've been willing to help us. And also to just contribute ideas as we moved to a new school, which we did, by the way, in 1 month. It was very hard. we've also continued to offer student support. We do a lot of individual support, individual tutorials. They're actually appraisals in disguise, but we don't tell them that. And Helen has, thanks to the MA she's working on with Niall, has developed a new self-assessment tutorial page or whatever that she's going to be doing with the students, and we're actually trialing it at the moment this week. One of the biggest changes, I think, is that we felt we had to move to ensure that there was safety and well-being in the school. That's paramount. So the new school where we are now is all on one level, so it's accessible for people with any kind of disability, but there are also 3 entrances, and therefore we can manage people better, although actually at the moment we can't have adults in the school. And then when Black Lives Matter came about, we decided that, yeah, we need to do something, but I didn't want to have a new policy, a box ticking exercise that went on the website, because we're already inclusive. But what we decided to do was to hold blind interviews in the future. So we will not see the people we're interviewing, and we'll do it online. We've already introduced inclusive induction. We've been trialing that for the past year. And that means that every single member of our staff is involved in managing or tutoring a module on the induction programme. I mean, not just academic staff, everybody. And it's very important, but it helps our staff remember what our values are, and it helps spread those values. And we've carried on with this idea of inclusion. It's the one thing that's come up again and again over the past few months, and the idea of being a community and how we have to create a safe space. And we've actually bought new books, even at a time when we had very little money coming in, and we've created an inclusion corner. Had a lot of help from friends and advice walking around our new school. And above all, we've had, luckily, a team that's grown together, wonderful management, great training manager, coordinator, and our director of studies. And I would like to think a little of that has come from the leadership. But I think what we've got here now is an inclusive mindset in a learning and listening organisation that's growing and evolving all the time. Thank you. Helen.
So yes, we wanted to just say a massive thank you actually to our key speakers internally, externally, because without them and their sessions and their hard work, because of course it wasn't just the session, it was hours of preparation and Zoom talks that we did together to make it all happen. So really massive thank you to them, and also to our sponsors who helped us put on this project, as Equals and Macmillan Education, and the team at the London School, because of course without them we wouldn't have been able to have such smooth communication, and any technical issues that we had, which we had, were smoothed out really quickly thanks to our local team as well. I just wanted to leave you guys with some links here. These are from some of our key speakers, and if you need these, I can put them in the chat as well. This one is the tool that we used with Claudia Ray to create the comic strips, which was a big hit with the students. They loved it, and as I said, they were actually sending us things after the session, so they were still using it, which is lovely. And this is our school website, which you can also find. We've done a blog post, again in collaboration with Equals, all about this project, and if you need any more information, that's also on there. Okay.
Thank you so much, Julie and Helen. That was amazing. Such an interesting presentation. And we've got a couple of questions coming through. One, How can inclusion be integrated better in teachers' CPD, not just teacher training, initial teacher training?
Shall I go, Helen? Okay, well, what we're doing is we devised quite a long induction program. I'll give you just a couple of ideas from that. As I said, we're still trialing it. It's been going for a year, but because of COVID, it's on hold a little bit. But one of the ideas we had, for example, is that a new teacher coming in, I have to say, if we have a new teacher from CELTA, for example, they do need a lot of support to get to where we would like them to be as an equals school. So we would get them, for example, to join up with one of our older teachers, not old as in physically, but having been here for a while, and to plan a lesson together. And then they would go and observe, let's say it's a young learner's lesson, they'll go and observe a young learner lesson with their mentor, and they will give feedback to the mentor, not to the teacher who taught the lesson, because we didn't want to take any risks in the beginning. And then they will do their lesson and they'll get feedback. We do that in different types of lessons. But we also include, for example, one of the front office people will spend an hour driving somebody around the area and showing them how to get onto the motorway in Italy, especially if they're from another country. And so they get support in more or less everything. But for us, one of the reasons for doing this is we took feedback from some teachers that had joined us, and we tried to work on what they had found difficult. So, for example, sorting out their internet connection. So we've tried to include in our program everything that they felt they needed and that we felt they needed. But also we've tried to use this opportunity as a way of starting their portfolio. So they build their portfolio, and at the same time, we really felt that in order to really get to grips with what our values are and our mission statement, which is the basis of everything, we needed all of our staff to revisit that constantly and then to share it, so that we really put down a strong shared foundation.
That all sounds great. There's another question that came to me. How are you going about sharing the story about what you're doing in your local context, and how is it being received? Now, I know you talked about the open day and the website. Are there any other ways that you're sharing what you're doing?
So as you mentioned, as we mentioned as well, the open day and also the website, and we have a blog that we update as well. So separate from the website, we also have blog posts, and we try to share them as well on Equals whenever possible, so they have their blog posts. We also have Julia, who's our teacher trainer. She works in the community with local teachers from other schools doing teaching for passion. So it's actually just finished last month, was it? Yeah, exactly. So she organizes presentations and other interesting things for teachers in the local community, to allow them to not only get new ideas for the teaching, but also to come together and have a little community of their own, you know, to share their ideas and struggles, perhaps. Particularly at this time, I think it was quite useful for those teachers to get lots of new ideas for online and how to do that as well. I don't know if there's anything I missed.
Yeah. Yes, there was actually. One of the other things that again has come through the COVID's been quite amazing actually. It's made us really productive. We decided that, or actually teachers in state schools told us they need more support. And Julia, our training manager, has actually set up a teachers club using
No.
Edmodo.
Edmodo, sorry, yeah.
Yes, sorry. And we're trying to build a community of teachers and letting them know when there are things happening online, when there are sessions. We're actually managing sessions for them once a month, doing little live how-to sessions. And so we're trying to build a community of support for them too, and share what we do in our school.
And that sounds brilliant. Teaching for passion sounds amazing. Is it having any? Oh, brilliant! Is it having the desired effect? Are students maybe, I don't know, setting up their own protest groups, or starting up their own I don't know, special interest groups? Or are they doing everything that you're providing for them, but not actually initiating things themselves?
Can I? I think one of the things that's happened is that local schools have asked us to come along and talk. I'm quite worried about it. We've been, in fact, the school where Giovanni unfortunately committed suicide, I've been asked to go and talk to parents. And again, it's been, I'm really worried about it, if I'm honest, because I know that I'm going to be going up against a certain mindset. But again, I think what I've learned through this is that we can do, I can open up the discussion through storytelling. It doesn't have to be conflictual, and I think that's great. The school itself is setting up a program, and they've actually got finances. I have to tell you, Linda, that we are still working in COVID conditions, and so we are struggling to work here at school, but we are going off school, actually off site a lot. And we're trying to get teachers in schools to allow us to, instead of doing what they normally do, so can you come along and do some practice of present continuous? I've said, can we bring our stories into the class? I did this one last week, the red crayon, with a group of primary students. So we're slowly trying to get them to think, if nothing else to think. And also to change the way we talk to students in the classroom too. I mean, we all know that the parsnips are avoided, but rather than say to students, what does your mummy do? What does your daddy do? I say, has anybody got two daddies or two mummies? Now, I'm not going to say that people don't laugh and giggle, they do. But I carry on. I'm trying to make these things normal and natural, and make a space where people can say, yeah, actually, I've got two daddies. Or, you know, have you got a boyfriend or girlfriend, I ask when I'm talking to 13-year-olds. I don't say, have you got a boyfriend just because you're a girl? Or I ask the boys, do you dance? So we're trying to just make it natural. Thanks, Rose.
That's great. I think you're right that the stories are one of the best ways of approaching this in the school. So good luck when you go into the local school.
Thank you.
One more little question. I loved the Brian Bilston poem and the recipe. Do you have any more brilliant materials like that you could share?
Oh yeah, actually we were given some really nice resources from our key speakers at the end, and if they're not on the blog, I will definitely send them on to you afterwards so you can share them. But
is the blog on your school website then? Is the school link, the blog link to that?
You can follow the link, and also through Equals, I believe there's the blog on there as well, the same blog. So the resources should be there, but I can send you some to share with the group anyway, if you like.
And we did have quite a few more poems as well.
Yeah, we had lots of lovely ones, and as I said before as well, that book, which is Julian is a Mermaid by Jessica Love, was one of the examples. But as you can see from the little, if I go back here to our little story corner, as Julie was saying, I think it's really important that we started to incorporate these types of stories when we're doing particularly primary education, so not just the regular stories like Hungry Hungry Caterpillar. We can also do things that are you know, a bit more inclusive as well.
Excellent, that would be great if and then we can share them as global issues, SIG. Brilliant.
Cool.
Does anyone else have any more questions? Anyone who's here? If anyone would like to unmute themselves. If not, I think we need to end it there. And thank you so much for your lovely talk with brilliant examples. And here's a virtual round of applause for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for joining us. And thank you everyone else for joining us in the audience. Please stay with us, go and have a 10-minute break and come back in 10 minutes for our next talk by Akemi Iwaza from Brazil called Shall We Talk About Racial Dissociation?